Okay guys, I think I've got a problem with military sci-fi games. And it's actually not just the graphics or the story, it's the fight itself. Something's gone wrong with how these games create conflict. It feels like we are playing against a, let's say, checklist, not an opponent. There are a few design choices that have turned our biggest, most beloved games into predictable routines. And it's not about hard games or easy games either, it's about empty games. And once you see these tricks, you'll realize why most battles feel like they're just cleaning up a mess. Only a few games have figured out how to fix this, or at least they try to. So let's break down some of these cliches that are killing tension and how to actually build a conflict that feels a little bit more real. With that said, welcome to OpenSplit, thank you for joining me on this channel, and let's talk about the military sci-fi cliches that need to die. So let's get started right away. The brain-dead horde. I think we have the most obvious one here. And you know this scene. The game funnels you into a combat zone, a bunker or a corridor. It could be maybe something on a track, and the enemy just arrives. They come and come and come. Your objective isn't to outsmart them, it's to outlast them. It's a last stand kind of situation, and it's just to survive the wave. This is the brain-dead horde kind of trope. The enemy isn't a thinking opponent, they're actually just a delivery system for your bullets and for XP. And some games, they might do this great. And I think we can look at Gears of War as an example where it kind of is something in between, I guess. And I really love Gears of War, the feel on the weight of the guns, the weight of the characters. I think I never played another game that felt the same way. And it's kind of iconic because of that. But let's break down a standard locust fight. You're in cover. Obviously, it's a cover shooter. It's the quintessential cover shooter. And then they just emerge from their holes. Your options are pretty simple. You just shoot at them. Maybe you can change up with shotguns for the ones that come close, throw grenades. I remember the game being pretty hard, but they don't necessarily flank you. They don't try to suppress you, or at least just with numbers. And they test your aim and your ammo count, not your tactics. I think you can see this everywhere. Let's for example look at Crisis, where you have this amazing suit. You can literally be invisible, super strong, and all of that stuff. But I'll be honest, I pretty much stopped playing when the aliens showed up, because it was getting too hard. And the game actually gave me all these tools. I should know how to use them, but the human enemies, they never force you to actually use it. It's just very easy to fight against them. So when the game finally needed to create a challenge, or at least that's how it felt to me, it doesn't get smarter. It just throws unfair aliens at you. So let me be blunt. You are not playing a game, you're doing chores. Because when the enemy is just a checklist of bodies, your tactics are a lie. The only challenge left is to do chores faster, or under pressure. So you're not fighting, you're instead racing a timer against a spreadsheet. Tension by numbers. So once we realize that the brain-dead horde isn't scary or tense on its own, we try to default to the tension by numbers pattern. So we think pressure comes from quantity or the lack of quantity. So more enemies, less bullets equals more fear. But that doesn't really add up, and instead it just creates a math problem. Dead Space is a perfect example. I think the first Necromorph is a masterpiece of horror and introduction. The sound design, the lighting, you being an engineer, it's all just perfect. But by the mid-game, and I'll be honest, I never finished this game, the feeling just kind of evaporates. You hear the shrieks, and you don't think, I'm scared, or how am I gonna survive this? But instead you think, how many Necromorphs can my plasma cutter handle? And unknown horror, that's just not a thing. The horror is, how much ammo do you have? It's math. The horror becomes inventory management. So the Necromorphs are actually a brilliant idea, a recombination virus. But as combatants, they're very simple. They jump scare and lunge at you. That's basically all they do. And obviously this works great. But it could be better, because I think you're not really fighting an adaptive bioweapon. Instead you're solving a dismemberment puzzle. Again and again and again. And we can contrast this with a Deathclaw in classic Fallout. So I never got that far in Classic Fallout, but I kind of saw how the Deathclaw is working in Classic Fallout. And one Deathclaw seems to generate more genuine dread than 100 fell ghouls would. I think the idea is that it doesn't just charge at you, it stalks, it circles, it feels like it's hunting you instead. Or at least the illusion of that is there. And this makes it smart. A smart enemy creates unpredictable tension, while as dumb enemies, obviously even in large numbers, they just risk the player zoning out at some point. So congratulations, I guess. We have now mastered the spreadsheet. But your reward is a story that means nothing, because if your enemy is just a number, they can't have a motive. I'm not exactly sure about the ending of Dead Space 1 because I think I didn't finish the game, and I'm not sure if this whole thing with the marker comes up, but inside the game, most of the time, it doesn't really feel like you're stopping the necromorphs. What you're doing is limb counting inventory management. So the greatest villains in gaming are reduced to a to-do list, which brings us to the next point. The faceless enemy. And now with that, we have arrived at the crown jewel of, I guess, lazy writing. The faceless enemy trope. Your enemy has no society, no culture, and basically no objective beyond just kill all humans. They are a condition of the world, and they're not really participating in it. And it robs your victory of any meaning. You didn't win a conflict or a war. Instead, you survived a natural disaster. And if you want to make your faction a natural disaster, I think that can work. Just think about the Tyranids in 40k. But if not done right, it can also betray even the best stories. Let's see the Reapers in Mass Effect. For 2 games, they were perfect. Intelligent, alien, ancient, and sovereign speeches. They are kind of legendary because they felt like a conscious strategic force that you must stop. But then in Mass Effect 3, the great revelation, what do you fight on the ground? Well, it's husks, obviously. And are these like cannibals, I think? Mindless zombies. And I think you can make like mindless zombies and hordes. I even have them in my game, obviously. But the setup, I think, it led me to believe that something else was about to happen. And the galaxy-spanning war of ideologies became, in the gameplay, basically just shooting faceless monsters. The epic narrative shrinks to fit the boring cliché. Now look at the alternative. XCOM 2. The aliens, and this is a very interesting pivot, the aliens already have won. They are not an invading force or a horde. They are actually the government. Advent is the police state. And your enemy has a plan. Pacify humanity through propaganda and gene therapy. So every mission is an act of sabotage against that very plan. You're not just clearing areas. Although you can try, the game is very hard. I couldn't, but that's usually not the goal. Instead, you're hacking terminals, destroying relays, and obviously rescuing dissidents, because who doesn't like an escort mission? But putting aside escort missions, the point is, when you win, it feels like you outthought them. You predicted their patrol route, you breached at their weak point, and you escaped before their reinforcements pinned you down. The conflict has meaning because the enemy has an agenda and you're disrupting it. Well, fine. Give the enemy a motive, give them a face. You've fixed the to-do list. But you're still being tricked because this whole genre is built on a false premise. That conflict is just the fighting. It turns the entire struggle into a highlight reel. You get the explosions, the gunfire and the heroics, but you never get the strategy. So we come to the conflict is only combat. This is kind of the master cliché of them all. It enables all the others. The belief that conflict is just a sequence of combat encounters. That the story exists only in cutscenes and the gameplay is just the violent intermission. Think about it. In most games, what are you doing when you're not shooting? And I'm also talking about games like Fallout 4 if it didn't have any kind of fast traveling. You're usually just like walking to the next place, where you will, guess what, shoot again. Maybe listening to some dialogue in between or looting some ammo crates, something like that. But the world is basically on pause and it's just waiting for you to walk into the next arena and start the next fight. I think that's a problem. It doesn't have to be, but it treats all conflict like a playlist of action scenes. It completely misses the strategy, the planning, the pressure of what happens before the bullets fly. That's where a real conflict actually feels alive. Now look at a game that rejects this, and we come back to XCOM 2. The war, the conflict, doesn't only happen on the maps, it happens on the geoscape. You're not just waiting for the next mission, you're managing a global resistance. And the game really was challenging for me to play because of that. But it also gave it a little bit more breathing room. I will always remember how in between missions I got the opportunity to talk to this one science guy, and he rambled on about these different research topics, which gave you so much context about the world, and it made everything so much more immersive, and the conflict felt much more real because of that. While you do other things, you can see alien facilities being built, and in the end you have to choose. Do I now hit this supply transport for immediate resources, or do I instead assault the black site to slow down their long-term plans? The actual combat mission is the climax of all the strategy sessions you had days ago. And we can also see something similar in the original Fallout. You don't just stumble into the super mutant army. Instead you hear rumors about the Master, you find logs about the Unity, and you can actually talk to mutants and learn their ideology, which is pretty interesting because I came from a Fallout 3 background, and the super mutants were just brutes. They could talk, but they never really talked to you. So it was surprising that they actually were intelligent. So the final assault, and that's again something I only saw in videos because I didn't play the game that long, but the final assault isn't a surprise. It's the inevitable result of understanding the enemy. You know what guns to bring, you know what armor to use. The conflict exists in the world, and it's not just the combat zone itself. Well, great. With all of that, we kind of have covered all the patterns, the cliches that I wanted to talk about. The stupid enemies, the fake tension, the faceless threat, the conflict that is just a playlist of fights. But you know what? I can tell you, the fix isn't just an impossible dream. It's already sitting there in games we've played for years. All we have to do is kind of put it all together. So, we don't need to invent new genres. The solution can be summarized in 3 simple but very impactful tricks. First, give the enemy a face and a goal. Stop making them natural disasters, unless you might want to make something like the Tyranids, obviously. But make them a faction instead. The super mutants in Fallout, for example, weren't just these big green and angry guys. They actually had a leader. They have a philosophy and a method, putting people in FEV vats and trying to turn them. So they were a perverse reflection, you could say, of humanity's own failings. And that's the story. That's the conflict. Second, we make the objective something other than just kill all enemies. So XCOM 2 is the blueprint for that. Your goal is almost never to just kill all of them, or you can try, but it's usually not possible. I think there are some missions where you have to kind of dispatch all the enemies, but anyways, usually it's just something like planting a bomb and getting out in 8 turns, or hacking a terminal and evacuate. I think this single change flips everything, and it makes you feel like you're an actual commando executing a precise strike, which I think increases the sense, the feeling of the conflict being much larger. Now lastly, we have kind of weaponizing the space in between the fights. So the conflict isn't just the shooting. The conflict should be the intelligence, the logistics, the moral choices you might make while no one's shooting at you, or maybe also like the lore you kind of absorb during your journey, which is obviously where XCOM 2 very much comes to mind. So what's the point of all of this? It's not to make games harder, it's to make them smarter, because a smarter enemy doesn't just give you a harder fight, it gives you a better story. And that's, I think, the only fight actually worth remembering. Okay, I guess that's pretty much all I wanted to say about this. These are kind of the cliches, the patterns that we need to be aware of. Maybe we avoid them, or maybe you can use them where they make sense. But anyways, if you made it this far into the video, It was awesome with you, thank you so much for watching. Please consider subscribing to the channel, like and share the video, and obviously I would be very much interested in your opinion down in the comments below. And if you're interested, you can also check out my own game on Steam. I hope you enjoyed the video, and let's meet again in the next one. Bye!